What is going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to an emergency CHGO Bulls podcast brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this emergency CHGO Bulls episode will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ALLCITY. That's Indeed.com/ALLCITY. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Happy Saturday night, everybody. I am Peck, Bulls_Peck, joined by my guy, the one and only Big Dave, BAWL Sports. Our pal producer on the controls is the one and only Stephen Nicholas, and joining us just in time, he just posted his DeMar goodbye column on AllCHGO.com, the one and only Will Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb. Ladies and gentlemen, it happened. We were waiting all day, and it happened. The three-team trade that sends DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings has been completed, reported by Shams, Woj, just about everybody. Shout out to Chris Haynes, who was the first one on this, just like he was 3 years ago when it was DeMar coming to the Bulls. We can get into all of the nitty-gritty of what the Bulls got out of this deal. We can reflect on DeMar's 3-season tenure with the Bulls. Immediate reactions from you, gentlemen. Shout out to everybody joining us in the chat. We'll get to as many of those as we can. Big Dave, the DeMar era is over. What is your first thought?
Oh man, so let's go behind the curtain for a second. And today, when we heard this stuff early, I went and ran errands and I left my phone at home. And so I was like riding around like, oh yeah, I don't need my phone today. Nothing's gonna happen. It's fine. No, it's gonna be cool. And then when I get back home about an hour later, I got a text message from Matt saying, stuff's about to go down. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great time. And I just walked in the house. And then we wait till tonight. I get to hang out in the CHGO Discord with the rest of the wrestling family and watch Money in the Bank on WWE. Thank y'all for hanging out with me, enjoying that. That was a great time. As soon as it ends, this trade goes down literally a minute later. And I'm not playing with you when I say minute, nigga. A minute later, after it ended, this happened. So the timing couldn't be better. Yes, I have nothing but gratitude right now for DeMar DeRozan and what he was and what he did for the Chicago Bulls. I wanted him to be where he wanted to be, and he wanted to be in the West, on the West Coast. He wanted to be close to home. That's exactly where he wanted to be. Like, he deserved that. He was great on and off the floor. He was just an amazing player. Many nights where it was just sad to watch the Bulls. It was never sad to watch DeMar DeRozan play. He always gave everything that he had on that floor. He did wonders for those young guys as far as instilling that strength in them, letting them know that they can be great NBA players. He took them under their wing. He had them up at 4 a.m. in the offseason, getting their workouts. They can credit a lot of their improvements and things that they've done better to DeMar DeRozan. But you couldn't ask for a better star. Had his best years of his career statistically here with the Chicago Bulls. Was being mentioned with the likes of Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan in that first season with the records that he was breaking. He was absolutely incredible. I still think they created the Clutch Award because of the season that he had. And they released it that next year. He is everything that you want in a superstar. He was awesome. Thank you, DeMar DeRozan, for everything. I'm honestly, the other reason I'm here is to listen to Will Gottlieb, because that's why I didn't even get into the particulars of this, because I'm saving all that for Will. This is exactly what I'm here for, to let Will do his thing out here on that. So, my friend, the floor is yours.
Wow. I mean, for one, I just I kind of can't believe it actually happened. I've been literally sitting in my computer all day waiting for this, because last night reports were kind of rolling in. Oh, DeMar's heating up with the Kings. Maybe this is going to happen. And then you figure okay, 11:01 Central Time this morning, the moratorium ends, and all of a sudden you've got it's not like you snap your fingers and all these guys are going to start signing free agents, but that was kind of another barrier. This afternoon, obviously, a bunch of the Kings beat, who has been really just impressively all over this, reporting that DeMar was meeting with the Kings. The Shams and Chris Haynes reports coming out that he was going to travel there. And it just felt like, I feel like the whole NBA Twitter, the whole NBA universe was kind of waiting on this for a little bit. And I kind of like that. I mean, I feel like DeMar deserved to have this moment where it was just kind of all about him, because you're right, Dave. I mean, he was just incredible for the Bulls. And I know it was an era where it was pretty disappointing in terms of outcome. One playoff, two play-in performances, one playoff win. It's just like the team outcome was not what you wanted it to be. But that doesn't necessarily take away from how incredibly special he was as a player. I don't even know that there's really like a perfect way to encapsulate all of the things that he did, but it's like it goes so far beyond the fact that he is second all time in Chicago Bulls points per game. Like that's crazy in 3 years what he did. But like, is that even the most impact that he had with this franchise? I'm not sure. I mean, you talk to some of the young players just raving about him, taking them under his wing, taking them to the 5 a.m. workouts, going to Io's jersey retirement, taking Dalen and whoever else it was with him to the Kendrick Lamar concert. Like, he was just like, I say this with as much respect as I possibly can for Caruso. Like, what Caruso did on the defensive end, DeRozan did for the offense and the culture of the team. And so I think he was great for the Bulls. He was great for that era, but as we all know, and as we've all talked about, it was time for that to end. And I'm really happy that he gets a chance to go to a place that will value him. I mean, he is the biggest free agent signing in Kings franchise history. And so I feel like that's like a good kind of accolade for him to go to that, whether or not this is his final contract, to be like that important to that franchise too. I think that signifies a lot, and to be sent there by his two former teams with the Spurs helping out in this trade. We can get into the details of the trade and the, bonuses and all that stuff and the picks and the players exchanging teams, but just, you can't really talk about any of that before just first mentioning how great DeMar was with the players, with the organization, with the city, with the media, with everything. He was awesome.
Yeah, and we can bookend tonight's emergency podcast brought to you by Indeed with some more DeMar love fest, and well said by both of you. But let's dive into the nitty gritty that Bulls fans are concerned about, because DeMar's gone and we are still here being Bulls fans. Kudos to DeMar. He does get the money he was looking for, at least some of it. Haynes reporting 3 years, $76 million with bonuses. First two of those years fully guaranteed at $59 million. The third year is a partial guarantee. And Woj, I believe, was the first to have the details of what the other teams in this deal are getting. Harrison Barnes goes to the San Antonio Spurs, so that's the contract they take on. They made a different move earlier today to free up a little bit of extra space that they needed to bring in Barnes's contract. And Chris Duarte, along with 2 second-round picks and cash, going to the Chicago Bulls. Shame on Woj for not putting the word considerations after the word cash. You should know how this works by now when it comes to the Bulls and trades. Jeremy Munoz in the comments asking, what seconds did the Bulls get? Goat, I haven't seen any specificity on which years those second-round picks are that Sacramento is sending to the Bulls. Woj did specify a pick swap between Sacramento and San Antonio in 2031. Do we know yet which years these second round picks are?
No, I have not yet seen it. If you keep talking, I can look up what picks the Kings have, and we can deduce, but I have not seen a report that has the specifics incoming. I know they do have 2 second round picks this year. So maybe if that, the Bulls are in a situation where they may not have their own first round pick, they don't have their own second round pick next year, getting one in this draft could be pretty good for them as they kind of move forward here with this young group.
All right. Well, so while Goat is looking up the Kings' outgoing and incoming picks in the coming years, Big Dave, just first thoughts, first reaction to 2 second-round picks and a young kind of role player who maybe is looking for a fresh start in Chris Duarte, the 6'6" guard, small forward, I believe 13th overall pick from the Indiana Pacers back in the 2021 draft, found his way to Sacramento after spending his rookie year with the Pacers. Whether it's Duarte or the second-round picks, what part of this do you like the most as a Bulls fan, talking about getting something for DeMar DeRozan instead of watching him leave for nothing in free agency? And also, of course, the cherry on top, the Bulls not taking salary back in this.
That is the huge part for me, Matt, not taking that salary back in this. And the other part of it is when they got the picks, my very first thought was they're not keeping those picks. That was exactly what I thought of immediately. I was like, no, they're using these to either get off of Vooch or get off of Zach, Could be wrong. I'm just telling you that was my very first thought when I saw it. I definitely remember Chris Duarte. He played well, I remember, with Indiana when he was there, and then he kind of fell off a cliff a little bit. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the Bulls value him or if they're using him also as trade bait as well, or something to throw in. I think all of that needs to be looked at because they've made it known the things that they want to do and the guys they want to get rid of, and they're going to need certain assets to do that. Will has talked about that a lot as far as the assets that the Bulls are going to have to acquire that they have to give up if they want to get rid of a guy like Zach LaVine. Well, this might allow you to do that. I don't know how it works. I'm sure Will break that down and explain it perfectly for us. But that was my first thought, though, Matt, is getting these second-round picks. I don't think they're keeping them. I think they're going to use them to package them and make some other moves for Zach or Vooch or both of those guys. But I don't think they're done in their dealings right now.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. They're going to definitely try to avoid having to attach picks to Zach or to Vooch if they can. But clearly, I mean, AK came out and said it after the play-in loss to the Miami Heat. He said, it's time for some change. And this is that. I mean, you now are missing your two best players from last year. You know, whether or not Zach and Vooch continue on with this team, DeRozan and Caruso were like literally the two best players in this team last year. They were the infrastructure on either end of the court. This is going to look a lot different. We don't know necessarily why all the specific decisions were made and what led to them, but this is the start of some major change. And I agree with you, Dave, that like this could be an opportunity to offload some second round picks. Look, the Bulls had some leverage in this. Obviously, they were able to get what I would say is like, you know, not like a super great haul, but like it's pretty good. You get a young player in Chris Duarte. He's 27 years old. As you mentioned, Dave, he had a nice rookie season with Indiana. He got traded, I believe, in the Tyrese Halliburton, Domantas Sabonis trade to Sacramento, and really did not get a foothold in the Kings rotation at all. So, you know, he's a solid player. He's kind of a 3-and-D wing that wasn't really effective as a three-point shooter his last couple of years, but I think he has a chance to try to at least develop into that kind of role player. That's a premium position. And then, of course, the second round picks, which you can either attach to Zach or attach to Vooch, or you can just, you know, maybe use them yourself. As we were talking, the Kings have the Portland Trailblazers second round pick this year, which could end up being pretty good. And then they've got all their other ones with the exception of 2030, which is going to Indiana, I believe, from the Halliburton trade. So who knows which of those picks are going to the Bulls, but they just need stuff. You need stuff to work with. And hey, brother Dave.
Brother
You
Dave.
need stuff to work with. And, you know, it's not a first round pick. It's not an unprotected whatever, but like this is a good start. And to get that for a guy who's walking out the door anyway, not bad business there.
Still plenty to break down here. There is a tweet from Bobby Marks as well about a trade exception created here for the Bulls.
Yes.
And some details on Duarte's expiring rookie contract. All that and more still ahead on CHGO Bulls. By the way, 1,000+ of y'all, our fellow Bulls fans, watching live with us here on YouTube late on a Saturday night on a holiday weekend. We appreciate each and every one of you. Do us a quick favor. Hit that like button if you're hanging out with us on YouTube. Make sure you also subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel if you aren't already. Now it's time to shout out some friends. This emergency podcast of CHGO Bulls brought to you by Coors Light. Between work, social media, and the choices life throws your way, it's no wonder sometimes we can get a little worked up. I know I can. That's why I always choose a chill mindset. It's very easy to do. And then after I choose a chill mindset, the first thing I do is reach for an icy cold Coors Light. Why not turn a rain out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Preferably one at Will Gottlieb's house. DBD. August? September? Maybe we'll do it after a CHGO Bears tailgate. Or after a tough loss, like the Cubs getting blanked earlier today. Hope Hendricks is okay. Settle the score with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill. Then reach for a Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. When the mountains turn blue, just like these ones right here, you know it's as cold as the Rockies and ready to drink. It's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light every time you embrace a chill mindset. Make the most of the times you choose to chill and get Coors delivered straight to your door. That's right. You can get it delivered to your door with Instacart. All you got to do is go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Oh, this next ad is Baby Joy approved, and he is down with the emergency podcast. He don't go to sleep. He ain't a regular baby. Get ready for the season ahead with those quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have got you coming with those premium polarized shades that will not break the bank. Shady Rays, that independent sunglasses company offering that world-class product that is rated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars for over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames, crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all your outdoor and also your indoor advenciones. The goat told me that's a word. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. And you know you got plenty of it. And if you don't love the shades that you got, you can exchange them for a brand new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop, and their team always has your back. So exclusively for the listeners out there, Shady Rays is giving away the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com. Use that code CHGO for 35% off of those polarized shades. Try it for yourself. The shades that are rated 5 stars for over 300,000 people, because it's Shady Rays where them rays are old. So shady. I'm ready. I'm ready. I got them. Oh, yes.
Oh, the glasses for sunglasses switch?
I got you, baby. I got you. I'm ready.
I love it. All right, gentlemen. So this from Bobby Marks. Soon after the trade went down, Chicago creates a large $17.6 million trade exception. Chris Duarte is in the last year of his contract, rookie extension eligible until October of 21. Will, how do you react to this pretty sizable trade exception the Bulls create here, and what exactly you think their plan might be with Chris Duarte?
Well, I have not had a ton of time to process all of the longer term things besides just the pieces moving back and forward. I will say this though, the Bulls are now what do I have them at here? Just under $5 million below the luxury tax. So yes, they have this trade exception, but as I understand it, even using that will push them above the tax. So another move would have to be made in order to make use of that. We've seen exceptions, whether it's the disabled player exception or various other trade exceptions over the past, not be used by this Bulls front office because they just weren't making moves at that time. Now, obviously, they're a little bit more active, and it's possible that they could use that to, continue making some of these deals. But I think right now it's more just about how do we move forward with the current group, understanding obviously that there are going to be continued talks around Levine for sure, and probably Vucevic as well. Clearly, Zach was the priority this offseason. They weren't able to figure that out before they had to come to terms with DeMar, which was pretty much exactly what I had been predicting this whole time, Flex. So this is how it ended up. And, we'll just have to see. I do think just having those extra assets. I mean, you look at the Portland first that they have, lottery protected. You've got a couple of extra second round picks now. That's something that you could attach to Zach that wouldn't kill you in terms of giving up future unprotected first in order to move off of him. So I think that could be something there if they need to. But that to me was kind of the point of getting some picks back here. The trade exception, we'll just have to see. But basically, they need to clear out some space in order to even make use of that in the first place.
Okay, so when you say
go ahead,
making
Dave.
a move about that trade exception, Will, when you say making a move, you mean they have to make new trades or they have to cut some guys just to be able to use that exception?
Yeah, basically that's 17. What was the number? 17.6.
17.6.
17.6. Yeah.
That you can absorb a salary into that if you're already over the cap. But since the Bulls are already so close to the luxury tax, about $5 million away, that would push them above that tax threshold. So it's the same thing as this disabled player exception last year, where if they were to have used it, it would have pushed them over the tax, which is why they ended up not using it and expired. So it's a useful tool, but it's the kind of thing that teams like the Wizards or the Hornets or some of these kind of bottom feeder teams, when they are trying to take in bad contracts in exchange for picks, those can be really useful in that circumstance. But since the Bulls are already so close to the tax, I think it's going to be difficult to use it without another move happening first. And, there's still a lot of summer left. Maybe something does happen with Zach Buch that opens up some space to be able to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, CHGO Bulls legend Mark K, our guy. I see him in the chat hanging out. Big news night. I'm done being a Bulls fan, says Mark K, but here he is making light of the fact that Our guy Gary Ross in the comments was talking about how the Bulls might use this trade exception, and Mark said, Gary, the Bulls can do a lot of things, but they never use trade exceptions. Mark's not wrong. As was and is and will always be often the case. Mark Hay, a little salty, not wrong. There's always an opportunity that things might change. Maybe this is the first time the Bulls use a trade exception. We'll see. Sure. Also, I don't know about you guys personally. I like plenty of Bulls fans I saw on Twitter over the last 24, 48 hours talking about this Kings deal, maybe a third team sign and trade. The Bulls might recoup a couple of second round picks. I saw a lot of Bulls fans saying, well, it's like, so what? It's basically the same as losing DeMar for nothing. No, it's not. In my opinion, getting a couple of second round picks and a significant trade exception, please use it if you can, is not nothing. And you're not taking back unwanted salary. Like, look, we've given the Bulls front office a lot of grief, and deservedly so, over the past 2 years of hashtag stick with continuity. And we're, I think, still all a little skeptical about what this rebuild or retool might look like in the coming season and seasons. Josh Giddey, Zach LaVine's still here. What the heck is the plan? They got something for DeMar when it was totally within the realm of possibility and my believability as a lifelong Bulls fan that we would have just watched DeMar go somewhere for nothing or taken on unwanted salary to get rid of him. Like, it's not a great result, but and again, low bar. I'm not like showering the Bulls front office with praise, but they got something done here. Good for them.
Yeah. No, that's what you do. When they do something right, we call it. When they do something wrong, we call it. Like, it's really that simple. I thought they did something right in this instance, like as you mentioned, Matt, by getting something for DeMar where it looked bleak as far as them getting absolutely anything for it. And then they didn't get any of the players that I thought that were coming, with those big, heavy contracts, the Kevin Huerter, the Harrison Barnes. Like, none of that happened. You walked away with picks and you walked away with cash, and you needed both. You needed both of those things because your cupboards, as we said before, were depleted. So you didn't really have any assets to hang on to. But now this puts you back in the mix as far as things that you can do. It gives you a little more flexibility, especially with players that you might want to offload. And there's still three players that they have to offload as far as Vooch, Zach, and Lonzo. I think Lonzo's a part of it too, because I'm wondering if getting Durante is that replacement for Lonzo Ball, because that's just a 1-year deal. We'll see what he works with, what he's like. If he does something, then maybe they do something next year. But they are not going to keep Lonzo Ball next season, no matter how it plays out. So I think he's a part of this also too. So, and Will, let me ask you this. Is this, and again, this is just me looking at it. When I saw the team that popped up was Sacramento, my first thought was, Sacramento's doing a favor for a guy like DeMar DeRozan. Do you feel like that's the case? Or is this just, no, this is just a basketball move strictly? Because it felt like a favor to me a little bit. Just because they love DeMar. Yeah. I know how much they feel about him.
No, it's a really good question. And it's actually exactly where I wanted to take this anyway, which was like the deal itself. DeMar, there's been a couple of different reports here, so I'm not exactly sure which one to believe. And I've got too many tabs open, so I'm trying to find it. But 374 is what Woj reported. 376 is what Shams reported. And then Chris Haynes, who is, I believe, pretty close with Aaron Goodwin, DeMar's agent. So I'm going to just kind of stick to this one. He said 3 for 76 plus bonuses. First 2 years, fully guaranteed $59 million, with the third year partially guaranteed. So that's almost $30 million a year for the first 2 years. We were talking about, is he going to have to sign for the mid-level exception? If he wants to go to the Lakers or the Clippers or something, it's going to be like the taxpayer mid-level. That's $5 million. He got a bag and he deserved it. He got more than what I was expecting. I was thinking it would be in the like 3 for 60, 3 for 70 range. And obviously it came in even more than that, being front-loaded on those first 2 years. So the Kings paid him, and they paid him well, which obviously he deserves, but that's the risk that you run and the position that I think we were all pretty skeptical the Bulls should put themselves in, which is paying a 35, 36-year-old when you are, the 10th best team in your conference. And that is kind of a similar position to what the Kings are in out there in the West. So they definitely paid him well, and I'm not at all saying he doesn't, he hasn't earned it or doesn't deserve it. He does. But that's just the reality of the situation when you're thinking about this new salary cap. So, they were able to offload Harrison Barnes. Basically, he's just going to slot in and replace Harrison Barnes in the starting lineup. He's the new power forward. Yes, you lose some shooting there, but I think we can all agree DeMar is a far superior player to Harrison Barnes. And then they are able to, partially guarantee. We'll have to see exactly what the details are of that third year. But I think this is like good, a good way to, reflect what I said before, which is that this is the best player that they've ever signed in free agency for the Sacramento Kings franchise. So they are paying him well, and he's going to be great there. But they also have a little protection on the backside in terms of guarantees and bonuses, where, if he starts to really fall apart, which I'm not expecting, maybe they do have some protection. The Spurs made a move this morning to trade Devontae Graham to the Charlotte Hornets. That cleared out a bunch of space for them to be able to take in Harrison Barnes here, and then they'll get a pick swap, a second, for the price of doing business. And then for the Bulls, obviously, Chris Duarte, I'm not saying he's going to be like a fixture of the Bulls rotation for the next 5 or 7 years, but he's fine. He's a good player. He's the type of player you want to take a swing on. He's making a shade over $5.5 million this year in the final year of his rookie deal. And they'll have to determine whether they want to extend him, let him get to restricted free agency. He is older as a guy still on his rookie contract. So they'll figure that part out. But I think for the Bulls, it's about not getting negative contracts back. Mm-hmm. They did not want to get into a situation where they had, $18 million of Harrison Barnes money this year and next year on their books, or $18 million of Kevin Huerter money this year and next year on their books, when they don't really know what their team is going to look like. And so I think, keeping yourself under the tax here, giving yourself that sort of flexibility and a few other assets to play with. These guys are movable. They could be interesting to other teams. They're certainly not harmful to your books to have, a rotation wing making $5 million. That's fine. So I think for them, it's really just about regaining some flexibility. And of course, like I said before, the Spurs and the Bulls kind of working together to get DeMar to a place that's going to love and appreciate him and giving him the, most possible money. That, it just felt like all parties kind of came together there to do right by DeMar and also make it worth all their while, because the Kings really need DeMar, obviously, but the Bulls didn't want to let him get away for nothing. They also didn't want to take on bad contracts just to help him out. And the Spurs, they get another rotation player to help stabilize and support Wembanyama and an additional second-round pick. So I think it's just a good deal all around. It's not going to be a home run, but certainly getting a couple of second-round picks and just avoiding, like I said, taking on bad money. That's really, I think, a key here. It's not necessarily the most inspiring, but I like the flexibility that the Bulls now have with this Duarte deal and a couple extra seconds.
Rob, our guy in the comments, saying, well done to DeMar not taking that mid-level exception and getting his bag. I mean, I agree. I'm happy for DeMar. If he took a mid-level exception or, my goodness, a vet minimum on his next deal, he would have been disrespectfully underpaid. Yeah, he's, coming into year 16, 35 years of age, but he is the reason the Bulls were almost a 500 team for the last 2 seasons. He, and as you said, Will, a little bit of Alex Caruso too, but my God, this guy is still buckets. He is still so valuable in this league, and Kings are going to be scary. Still plenty to break down and discuss, reacting live to the Bulls trading away DeMar DeRozan in a sign and trade. My brother's cat is in the background for some reason. Get the fuck out of here, bro. And more thoughts on the DeMar era in Chicago. Make sure you watch and subscribe.
Sunnyside, y'all, because I know you want some right now. It's your home for Judgment cannabis-free shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality hydroponics in the city. Sunnyside has everything you're going to need to elevate your summer. It's your one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary with locations in the city like Wrigleyville and River North, to the suburbs, Champaign, South Beloit, and many, many more. And here for the summer is Good News Tea Time Disposable Vape, bringing classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course, because we all need a little help staying loose on the green. So head to sunnyside.shop and use HICHGO at checkout for 35% off your favorite brands like Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and over or Illinois Met card holders.
This emergency CHGO Bull Show also brought to you by Circa Sportsbook, offering those tight money line splits and their low hold model, always striving to have starting odds on whatever you're looking for. Point total over unders, game spreads, money lines at -110. Not like a lot of these other sports books these days, pushing those starting odds to -115 or -120 for no gosh darn good reason at all. Circa keeps as little money as possible also on large market bets like futures, golf tournaments. We still got plenty of golf left this summer. And speaking of futures, the NBA Rookie of the Year odds just dropped. I saw on a bunch of different sports books earlier today. I believe Matas Buzelis, Bulls number 11 overall pick, is somewhere around the plus 1,000 range, behind several of the guys taken ahead of him in that 2024 NBA draft. So if you're feeling good about Matas Rookie Year, maybe Circa is where you need to get the best odds on that Rookie of the Year bet for our new Bulls player. Circa also doesn't limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other sportsbooks who limit their winning players. They also, of course, have the best, unparalleled, unquestionably undefeated customer service in the gambling biz. Real people behind that Circa brand who resolve any issues you might have in a timely fashion, unlike other sportsbooks who use the dreaded chatbots. We don't want the chatbots. Download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Be on the lookout also for Circa's events, watch parties, and tailgates. Shout out to them for always rocking with our CHGO Cubs 120 Friday Club. If you or someone you know may have a gambling problem, just call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyoureallywinning.com. All right, so the next question I have about this finally happening tonight, like we kind of have known for a couple of days now that DeMar was going to be gone and not coming back to the Bulls. There was maybe a little bit of like, well, if they find a trade for Zach, then maybe they bring DeMar back and they can afford to bring DeMar back on maybe a 1 or 2 year deal just to stick around. Now that it is official and DeMar is gone, Goat, do you feel like we need to be more concretely defining if this is a retool or a rebuild? Because that's where my mind is right now. I've seen a lot of our fellow Bulls fans in the comments tonight talking about prioritizing keeping that 2025 first-round pick that is top 10 protected that we owe to the San Antonio Spurs from the original DeMar signing trade from 3 years ago. Like, you clearly lose a lot of talent when you send DeMar DeRozan away and you bring in Chris Duarte. So do you think, with a lot of other teams kind of steering towards the bottom, it seems, coming up into this 24-25 NBA season, is this a sign that AK and Eversley are fully saying, okay, this is a rebuild? DeMar's gone.
I mean, you can like define it however you want to define it. I'm not like reporting this, but like they have to know the importance of keeping their pick this year. I think my interpretation of what they are trying to do right now is acquire the pieces that you can start to look at like, hey, we've got a young group of players here that can grow and build together. They can, over the course of the next couple of years, start to, exceed their contracts and really kind of break out the way Kobe did last year. You've got Giddey, you've got Patrick Williams now locked in for 5 years, $90 million. You've got Ayodesumu still, you've got Matas Buzelis coming in. So there's a solid young core here. And what it seems to me that they're trying to do is avoid having to go through this 3 to 4 year, we're going to be the worst team in the league and bank on lottery balls and collect a bunch of draft picks and do what the Brooklyn Nets are doing. I don't think they have any interest in that. I don't think they have any desire to do that. And they probably could have done something closer to that if they wanted to. If they had prioritized getting picks for Caruso, maybe they did move on from Kobe and Ayo. You get Madison here. Now you've got like nothing, and you're collecting picks and you're trying to be really bad and maximize the value of your own pick next year and keeping that. They could have done that, but clearly that's not the direction they wanted to go. So you can call it what you want to call it, but at the same time, you have to understand that you right now you have a core of young players that are good. There's some interesting upside here. I think I am a little bit higher on Giddey than consensus. I'm not saying he's going to be a great player, but I don't think he's like a terrible disaster kind of version of him that we saw in the playoffs. That's the taste that's left in people's mouths. Obviously, Kobe really blew up last year and played well, and I expect him to take another step forward next year. We want to see what we can get from Patrick Williams and all of that. But they wanted to build a core that they have the foundation already. They don't need to go out and figure out where that foundation is going to come from. They've already got that. The key now is, how do you find the guy? Because they've got some good players. I don't know that you could point to anybody on the roster right now and say, this is the best player on a championship team in 3 to 5 to 7 years. No disrespect or anything like that, but I just don't know that you can really point to anybody on the roster and say that they've got that guy. And the way to do that is the draft. So you've got to keep your pick. I don't think they're going to be one of the 3 worst teams in the league next year. There's a lot of competition for racing to the bottom. But to me, like, the bigger thing is avoiding the risk and the back end to getting pushed out of the lottery. Like, they have to be in the bottom 6 in order to guarantee that they won't get pushed into 11th. If they fall as the 7th worst team, where we're all very familiar, if they are the 7th worst team and have the 7th best odds to win the lottery, 4 teams could jump them and they get pushed to 11. All of a sudden that pick is going to the Spurs. So they have to prevent that. They have to do their best to prevent that. I'm not saying that necessarily means that they need to be the worst team in the league this year, but it wouldn't hurt, because right now, I think, to me, the most important thing is not necessarily like getting Cooper Flagg, but getting at the top of this draft where you have real franchise changing players. And now you can start to say, like, we've got a guy and we've got a group around him that he can grow and build with. So I get what they're trying to do. It's a very fine line to walk, and there's probably a better chance of it kind of pushing them back into the middle at some point than, towards the top of the league or towards the bottom. But that is the path that they're going for. And we'll have to see whether they can, walk that fine line, because it is going to be a real challenge here. I mean, the bottom of the East itself is just really, really bad. And so you're competing with the Pistons, the Nets, the Wizards, the Hornets, the Raptors, the Hawks, like all these teams. One of those teams is going to make the play-in, if not 2. So you cannot be one of those teams, because then you're going to lose your pick. And then I think that really sets you back.
Yeah. Well, I love being on the same page with you. I really do, because I 100% agree with everything you just said. It's funny because the race at the bottom, like, it's going to be so bad. It's almost like the race at the top. You know what I'm saying? Like with Boston, with the Knicks, with Philly, Milwaukee, like at the bottom, it's just as bad as it is good. You know what I mean? From the top to the bottom. And the middle is where the Bulls do not want to be in that aspect. Definitely want to be towards the bottom of that. The reason I like this so much, and you asked about, Matt, is that rebuild. And Matt, you worked in the restaurant industry. You know what a soft opening is. You know what I mean? You know what that is.
Oh boy, do I.
Yes. So that's what I think this is. This is like a soft rebuild, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a full breakdown and, like Will stated, going completely terrible like these other teams, but it's also not saying we want to really compete and try to make this play-in or make these playoffs. So we're in the middle of bad with hints of good. You know what I'm saying? On it. Maybe hints of good. Let me say it like that, because I haven't seen this team play. But what I do like about this is questions will be answered now. Guys are out the way where questions can be answered now for this season for certain young guys on the team. And I mean fully answered. Whether we feel like we know the answer already to it, whether Matt feels it or Will or me feels like we already know the answer to these guys, it will be answered without anything underneath it or on top of it. You're going to get it straight real, seeing it on the floor. Patrick Williams at the 3, that's going to be answered. That question will be answered now. Now we can put that to bed and lock that down. Is Josh Giddey a guy you can build around? That's a point guard that you can build around. We're going to get the answer to that. Is Kobe White really that dude? There's still a lot of people who still don't believe that Kobe White can be that guy. Well, guess what? You're going to find that out this season. What truly is Ayo Dosunmu? Where does he truly fit on your team? You're going to get all these answers this season. Is Matis a dude like that? Can he be a guy that you build around? Can he shoot? Well, he's going to find out, because he's going to get a bunch of attempts this season to shoot those threes and find out if he could be that guy. Is Julian Phillips, Matt's special boy, is he that guy? Can he be part of this? Can my main man, Dalen Terry, show that he can shoot a 3-point shot? All of them are going to get answered, because they're all going to get these opportunities to showcase whether they can or cannot, because they're all going to get time and they'll all be put in that situation to showcase if it can happen or not. And that's what excites me more than anything, is that we will know unequivocally, we will know who is doing what and who can do what. So when we go into next year and go into this draft, we know what we need.
A lot of fans in the comments chiming in about what exactly this means for the Bulls. NHK20 saying soft rebuild. Christopher Rain saying can't do a tank halfway. Matt saying it's not a rebuild, in my opinion, a hard retool. Kobe may turn into Maxey, most improved. Io may turn into six man. Pat may turn into Kawhi 2.0. They will still make the play in. And see, to me, you just laid out a few really, really fun, brilliant ideas that I, as a Bulls fan, would love if those things came to fruition for Pat, for Kobe, for Io. I would not love it if the Bulls are in the play-in tournament next year, because then what the hell are we doing? I saw our guy Marquet make another smarmy comment about, Giddey averaging a near triple-double, modestly so, and leading the Bulls to the promised land, aka back to the 9th seed. Like that cannot be the plan. Like you said, Dave, like the line some bad and a little bit of good, and maybe there's upside here or there. I saw somebody else in the comments earlier. I can't find it. There's too many talking about like, hey, here's our projected starting five now. Here's our bench now. This all looks pretty good. Like that's a pretty solid place to start a rebuild. And I agree to a point. And the point where I stop agreeing to the, hey, that's a really solid place to start a rebuild, and the people who are saying tanking is worthless, you don't need to tank this, draft class, whatever. Somebody in the comments was saying Cooper Flag ain't it. None of these players, I don't care if you're talking about the come-up generation of Kobe, Pat, Io, Dalen, or I don't care if you're talking about newcomer Josh Giddey or our number 11 draft pick, Modest Buzelis. None of those names that I just rattled off, as a Bulls fan, do I think best player on a team that's making a deep playoff run anytime soon.
And that's possible.
That's the part that's missing, and that's why you need to keep that pick next year.
It's possible. And like if the Bulls do end up making the play-in again, like it's not like that in and of itself would be a bad thing. That would tell you that guys took steps forward. That would tell you that Modest did something and had a good rookie season, that Patrick was able to stay healthy and take a step forward, that the guys played well together, that Giddey was kind of regalvanized by this new situation and he was able to develop his game. So getting there in and of itself would signify the right things. And that's what I think we were all hoping for this past year. It's like, okay, you're not going to tear it down and rebuild. At least let's see some growth from, Patrick and Kobe and Io. And they got some of that. But now, like, the stakes are a little bit higher because of that pick. You don't have your pick if it falls outside the top 10. That's like, you can't like mess around with that. That's like just playing with fire. And I feel like with that, the stakes are way too high. With the chances of getting pushed back in the lottery, I mean, that could really set you back, because it's not just about the talent. It's not just about the picks. It's about the contracts that you have these guys on and when you need to pay Kobe and Io, and having to like start to bring in a cheaper infrastructure of players like Matas and whoever they are able to get in the top 10 of next year's draft if they keep their pick. Those are going to be much cheaper contracts on much more palatable deals as the cap continues to rise. That allows you to continue to give Patrick and Kobe and Io and Giddey these raises that it seems like they're all trending towards. I mean, Kobe's max in 26, 27 is like going to be almost $60 million a year. That's like just a massive amount of money. It's like, a quarter, 25% more than what Zach LaVine is making right now, and they can't move him. So I'm not saying he's going to get that, but like that's what the 30% max will be when Kobe is eligible to sign his next deal. If you want to pay him that much, you have to have a bunch of really cheap contributors who are really high level in order to justify that. And I think that is kind of what the Bulls tried to put together last time, right? They got, DeMar and Vooch and Lonzo and Caruso on pretty team-friendly deals, and then they had to pay Zach LaVine, and you gave him that max, and then he was the number one guy, but you still have this good core. I think they're trying to do a similar thing, but that's why like you can't go into this without the number 4 pick, Patrick Williams, into that next core. It just doesn't make as much sense. So keeping your pick here does really matter. And it is like that. What makes it a fine line to walk is that it's not like you've just completely torn down your roster and you're playing Sean Kilpatrick and, Tyler Smith or whoever 48 minutes a night. Like that's just not the case. These guys are like NBA players. They're legitimate NBA players. They're good players. You still have Zach, you still have Vooch for now. We'll see what happens. But like, this is not a situation where you just throw the ball out and say, you guys go run around and win 17 games. It's not going to happen that way. I don't think they're going to be anywhere close to as good as last year because they've lost their 2 best players. But the East is so weak in that area that like they could mess around and just find themselves, a game out of 10th at the trade deadline. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe we should just go for it. No, don't go for it. go for the bottom. You need to keep your pick. That is super important as you build the roster moving forward. That is the most important thing you can do.
But I do appreciate you saying it's not the end of the world if they do make the play-in on that. I'm not gunning for the play. I'm just saying I appreciate you saying it, because also the team with the number 1 pick in the draft this year was a team in the play-in. So it can still work out for the Bulls getting a top 10 pick, even if something unlikely like that occurs for them. But yeah, well, like you said, it's not just rolling it out there and just, whoever wants to do what they want to do, go do what you feel like doing. It's kind of situation for this team. It's about seeing who can do what and the growth of these young guys and what they learned these past years while they were watching DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball do their thing for this team. So I'm very interested and just very happy to sit and watch that. And it just makes me more excited for things like Summer League, going in there and watching those guys' development and seeing where on this team, because now there are certain spots opened up because there's a big hole now as far as who's your number 1 guy. That's another question to be answered. Like, who's that guy? Who's the dude on the squad? Like, somebody has to be the best player default on this team. You know what I'm saying? What? Hey, if it's Zach, then there it is. But it's open. Is all I know. Is that is an open slot right there. So who wants to step into it this season and go for it this year, man? Like, it's so many questions. And what I like about it is I will get legitimate answers. I don't have to get everybody's opinion. I get legitimate answers because it will be on the floor. We will see it happen, and we will be here watching every game with y'all, watching it happen in real time. And I'm very excited about that.
Appreciate every one of you fellow Bulls fans of ours hanging out with us late on a Saturday night on a holiday weekend as we react to this breaking news. The CHGO Bulls Emergency Pod, brought to you by our friends at Indeed. When you need to hire, you need Indeed. If you haven't hit that like button, now's the time. What are you waiting for? Hit the like button. Make sure you also subscribe to CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We are live here talking Bulls 5 days a week. And if you are a Chicago diehard across the board, we got shows for all of your teams. Look at that number, climbing and climbing, 57K and growing. Steven, our good man, producer and pal behind the controls. Do we have some super chats that we should shout out while we've got some time here? Also, if you feel like you're generous and in a good mood tonight, throw us a super chat. If you want to get your comment read, make sure it's a super chat. Our guy Braggs in the stands. Hit that like at 10 p.m. on a Saturday, gang. Shout out to our guy Braggs, who's
is in the
on his tippy toes about this DeMar trade that may have gone down over this holiday weekend. Also, screw you, Braggs, because he pulled just a douche move the other day, digging up an old DeMar tweet from 2010 about the Kings.
That killed me.
And he put it in our Bulls Slack after a couple of real tweets from reporters about how the Bulls Kings stuff was heating up. Just because you get duped by shit, Braggs, doesn't mean you got to do it to the rest of us.
Got nothing but love for you, Braggs. Hope you feel better, sir. Hope that knee feels better.
Kevin Majewski, hopefully I got close on that last name pronunciation. Apologies if I didn't, with a $4.99 super chat saying trade Zach somehow, then I'll have some faith in this organization, maybe.
Should we talk about that one for a second? Because
yeah, I mean, we can.
Definitely like first thing on the agenda now. I mean, it has been, but
and it's crazy that we were talking about Zach for Herter and Barnes and maybe draft capital for Zach LaVine. Nope, the Kings got DeMar. Yeah, like we want DeMar. It's crazy. So, I mean, where do you think that puts Zach LaVine and the Bulls right now, Will? And this comes on the heels of his agent Rich Paul saying some pretty, pounding the chest kind of stuff the other day about how Zach's, bad rap around the league is not justified, and he's, came to the aid of his client.
Yeah, the more I was thinking about that Rich Paul thing, like the more the less it made sense to me. Like, who is saying anything negative about Zach right now? I mean, is it just that like there's nobody who's willing to take him? Is that like the critics that he's kind of like trying to go back at? I don't really understand that, but I think at the end of the day, like Zach still is the move that they need to make. They do want to, if they're not going to call it a rebuild or they want to call it a retool or whatever they want to call it, it is a roster overhaul. They're going to now focus on some of the young players on this group and obviously adding to them. I don't know what it's going to take to get off of Zach at this point. Like the Kings seemed like a home for him, and obviously now DeMar's going there. So I just don't know who else is going to be interested. Obviously, you've still got teams like Detroit, like San Antonio. Oh, I guess San Antonio now does not have any more cap space. Utah would be a team that has some space where you could, dump him into their room using a couple of picks. Maybe it's these 2 seconds, an additional first, maybe some more seconds of your own in order to do that. I just don't really see an easy answer. And like the Kings kind of felt like a team where they could be interested in, clearly they were interested in adding talent. And so you thought maybe Zach could have been that guy. They had the trade package to get it done. Obviously that is no longer on the table. So we'll see. But like, to me, that is still the thing, because right now I've heard a lot of people talking about like, well, who's going to be in the starting lineup? Can you bring Zach off the bench? Like, how do you work that? Zach is like, he's still like the number one guy on this team right now. And that's kind of the problem. They need to find a new number one guy. And so I don't care if Zach starts or comes off the bench. Like, that's kind of missing the point to me. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of weaknesses is this team going to be good enough at 3-point shooting or defense to be able to compete. Like, that doesn't matter. It should be about figuring out the roster first. And then you figure out the weaknesses and strengths and what you need to continue to build with moving forward. Because unless you get to that point, you're just running it back with this same group. Right now they're a very similar group to the one that they started with before they even traded for Lonzo and Caruso and DeMar. It's Zach and a bunch of, younger players who are still improving, and you just trade for Vooch. So they still have a lot of work to do, and I don't think they're done yet. But I also just don't see an easy fix for Zach or for Vooch, for that matter, either. There's just not a lot of good homes out there. But I do think that getting these extra picks in does, it's possible that those could kind of grease the wheels on a trade where, the Utah Jazz, for example, I think they've got a lot of space. Maybe they send back a smaller contract, or maybe even someone like John Collins, who's got 2 years and $26 million per, with, you throw 3 or 4 second-round picks and maybe that Portland pick on Zach. Like, is that going to be enough to get it done where you're not really, eating into your own first-round picks? I don't know. But like, you're just kind of running out of options here. And even though you don't want to attach picks, like, you do feel some pressure to get something done so that you can move forward. That's really what this DeMar and Caruso trade signifies, this team moving forward. And it's hard to do that when you still have Zach on the roster.
Absolutely right.
Goat, are you ready for a dig and then an immediate ego boost behind it? Because this is a great succession of comments here in the live chat. Ryan Mott saying, "Hey, will you stop being so negative, my guy?" And then the very next comment.
This is like the most positive I've ever been. From
40 points in, long-time follower, first-time commenter. I desperately seek real, informative, analytical Bulls coverage every day. Incredibly grateful for CHGO. Will you provide absolutely excellent coverage? Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at Go get some love in the comments. Appreciate it.
Appreciate
what do you think about the Zach part of this whole saga, Dave? Like, what do you? We've talked about keeping him around to try to boost his trade value. We've talked about, swallowing that tough pill of attaching an asset to move off of him and move on and fully hit this rebuild button. You mentioned, I think, at the top of the show about, hey, what are we going to do with these second round picks that we just got? Might we use them in some other direction? Where are you with Zach right now, Dave?
So I think, like the last time we did a show, I told you guys, like, maybe it was my optimism setting in. I just felt like they were going to get a deal done. So getting these picks just furthered that for me and my optimism about getting something done with Zach LaVine. Like, they didn't understand that they cannot, this is just my opinion, they cannot go into this season with Zach LaVine on the roster. It just cannot happen. He has to be going in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be difficult. Yes, it's going to be hard to get him off your books and to find a team that will take him on. We understand that, but that's why you get the 6-figure salary, is to get these hard things done. That's why you get paid. So I think Will used a great analogy when he said greasing the wheels. This greases the wheels to make the kind of thing, certain kind of things happen with Zach. And that's how I look at it. As soon as they got the picks, I was like, well, there's no reason to hold on to these. These don't belong to you. These are just sitting over here to use later into something that we want to trade with somebody else. So maybe another 3-team trade. I don't know how they do it. I'll put it together. People much smarter than me who get paid much more than I do are going to figure those things out. But they cannot go into this season with Zach LaVine still on the roster. It's not good for them, and it's not good for Zach LaVine. It's not good for anyone for him to still be here. So I think he'll be gone. I really do. I think something will be found. He will be gone, and he will continue his career elsewhere. hopefully dropping 25, 5-5 for another team. But yeah, I just think the Bulls understand where they are and who they are. They've really done what they said they were going to do, which is something I liked about AK when he first got here. With everything he kind of said when he first got here, he did. And then that got completely lost in the next few years. And now it's kind of back on track, like, oh, back to reality. You know what? Yeah, this is reality. We're going to have to deal with it. And I'm watching them deal with it. And reality's hard to deal with. Like this contract with Zach. It's just difficult to deal with. But this is why you get paid the big bucks and you're the guy. So I expect Zach LaVine to not be here. I expect the deal to be done. I don't know when it will happen, but I don't expect him to be a Chicago Bull this season.
And the thing is, like, just how much are you willing to do to like get rid of him at this point? I think that's kind of the question they have to ask themselves, because any contract is movable. You may not think so, but like if you attach enough assets to it, you can move it. Like, would you attach, 2 first-round picks and a pair of seconds to Zach in order to move him? Would you attach Io and a first-round pick and a pair of seconds? Like, how far would you go in order to kind of rid yourself of Zach and move forward? I think there's value in doing it, but I also hate to see the Bulls enter a rebuild situation similar to the one that they did last time, where they drafted once per draft for 4 years while they were, the worst team in the league on aggregate. So that's just a difficult situation to set yourself up into. I know that what they're trying to do right now is set themselves up for sustainable success, where they don't have to be that really bad bottom feeder for 3 or 4 years. Like, that's kind of the way that you do it. But the way that you keep that thing going, the way that you sustain it for long periods of time, is by having the extra draft picks, where you do hit on guys in the teens or 20s that can be contributors and help you as you kind of move along. And so as the Kobe and Io and Patrick kind of era ages, now you're bringing in players in the, teens and 20s in the draft that can help you as you kind of, you need younger, cheap contributors in order to keep this thing going. So the draft picks are really important. And even second rounds, it's like, you don't want to give those up, but at a certain point, like you also, I agree with you, Dave. It's like, you just can't have Zach on your team for 3 more years right now. And it's just like, at some point we'll look back at this after Zach does get traded and just think about like how insane of a saga this has been, where, you draft this guy, or you trade for this guy, you max him out, and then all of a sudden you're just immediately looking to trade him. You can't. It's like the worst kept secret in the league that you want to get rid of him. Nobody wants him. And now you're attaching picks to move him. That's just kind of like a crazy situation. But unfortunately, the urgency and pressure to move on is what is depressing his value even more. And that's what's ultimately going to cost them in the end.
I believe we have some more super chats we got to get to. Our fearless producer, Steven. What do we got going on? Shout out to Lee Travis, who just threw us a $2 super chat. No comment, Lee? What's your take on the DeMar trade, Lee? We need to know. Robert with a $5 super chat saying, I had a thought. Flow with me, guys. With no DeMar, Vooch has room to work in his spots. I believe we can get his value up and move him at the deadline. Appreciate the super chat, Rob. I did see, I took a quick glance at our pal Joe Callie's write-up on this for the Sun-Times. He mentioned once again that the Bulls are flirting with and kicking the tires on, hey, anybody out there want Vooch? So obviously Zach LaVine and finding him a new home remains the top priority for the Bulls front office, according to everyone reporting on this. But it I guess is feasible anyway that Vooch could be another piece the Bulls are looking to move to officially move all the way off of this old big three of DeMar, Zach, and Vooch. As far as with DeMar gone and Vooch improving his game and doing a bit more to bump up his trade value, which is mostly a conversation we've had about Zach LaVine and not Vooch. Right. Dave, as an oftentimes Vooch defender, but I think all of us kind of got tired of defending Vooch last season because it was not a great year. What do you make of that theory that, hey, without DeMar, Vooch could look like a more useful piece and maybe something that the Bulls can look to move at the deadline next season?
I mean, I hope he does because of that reason right there. If there's anybody between Zach and Vooch who I'm like, you want to bring back to boost their value, it's Vooch. It's definitely him, because a team will definitely make that move mid-season to get a guy like Nikola Vucevic on your team. So I think it's a good thought process to have that, Robert. I really agree with your thought process on that if he's the one, if you're going to make him the one on your team and make him the hub and run your offense and those kind of things through him, yeah, he might shine a little bit more because we all know Nikola Vucevic, regardless how I feel about him, how we think about him, is still 16, 18, and 10 or 11 rebounds, as an average, for a guy like that, even with shooting abysmally from the three-point line. And even with him never getting to a free throw line, he still will put up those kind of points and get those kind of rebounds. And is still a really excellent passer as well, still with a really high basketball IQ. Like, he still has all of those skills with him. He's never been in that situation here before where everything had just kind of won through him. When he first got here, it was always Zach. And then it was DeMar, then Zach. Like, he's always had to kind of take those steps back. Well, if he's here, then he takes no steps back to no one coming into the season. You're the gun to start the season. We'll figure out who's number one as the season continues on. But to start the season, he's the top gun. And Billy Donovan is going to be running everything through that young man right there. So, yeah, you can definitely boost his trade value. You can definitely get that up. I hope it works that way for him. I hope if he comes back, he has a spectacular half a season. And then we get rid of him and get some assets and keep moving forward. But he is the one that I wouldn't have a problem bringing back to boost the trade value at all.
So I don't know if our pal Snark K is still in the comments, but his counterpoint to that, and I agree with it, is, okay, great. You want to bring back Zach, you want to bring back Vooch. Well, now if you're trying to rehab their value and make them look good, that's taking the ball out of Giddey's hands and out of Kobe's hands and out of Patrick's hands and out of these young players who you're trying to develop. So that does conflict with what this new direction is. And there's just not a good answer because there's arguments on both sides that make sense. Is it better to pay assets in order to get off these guys so that you can let the younger players develop and move forward? Or is it better to bring them back so that you don't have to at the expense of letting those younger players develop with the ball in their hands? So that's the calculus that this front office is going to have to deal with here. I think there's really strong arguments on both sides of it. At the end of the day, in 2-3 years time, neither of those guys are going to be on the roster. And so if you can find a way to make it work, act on that. But it seems like they're already kind of taking that path. It's just a matter of do you get to that point of desperation where you're attaching picks? And, with Vooch specifically, $20 million a year is not the same as 43. So I do think his contract is going to be a little bit more movable. 2 years on the deal is not the same as 3 years on the deal. And that's that all benefits, I think, Vooch being a little bit more palatable for a team to take in. Teams like, I don't know, the Pelicans right now have one center on the roster and they just drafted him 2 weeks ago. So they need somebody who can step in and space the floor a little bit. That could be an option, but money is a bit of a barrier there. There's going to be teams, though, I think, that are at least interested in Vooch as a backup. But the other thing is with the teams that are going to have cap space next year, maybe it does make sense to be able to just keep those guys for the year. If you can move them at the deadline, fine. If not, you get to next season and then you can trade them as kind of pre-agency where you're sending guys to teams in trades where they want to be, who are going to extend them. And that way, they're able to get to the place they want to go. You're able to get an asset for them and they are able to go on with their career in another team. So it's just I'm not saying one answer is right or the other. It's just, that's kind of the difficult situation you're in right now.
It's true. But I think Vooch's game lends itself more to being around those young guys than a guy like Zach LaVine, who has to be ball dominant and has to have the ball. If you give Vooch the ball, there's a great chance you'll get it back. We know he's a great and excellent passer. You can kind of run your offense like that, where everybody can still touch, and that showcases his skill and his skill set and what he does better, his IQ and those things. So, yeah, I think Vooch would be better as far as the game and how it fits with those kind of young guys like that. Because if he makes that move and you're open in the corner, he's going to hit you. Unlike Zach LaVine, if you're open in the corner, he still might be dribbling and trying to find his way to the rim. So his game lends itself to those young guys and helping their development. And again, that's why I said half a season, because I don't need it for the full season. I half of the season. I just need him to do those things, and let's see if we can get it done.
Half. Shout out Bernie Mac in Best Santa. Half. MC with a $10 super chat saying, I think the Bulls want to trade Zach because the roster will play better with Zach's style and could surprise people. If it happens, Zach will be owed apologies for the smut he has taken. So are you saying they want to trade him because they are trying to tank next year and Zach will work too well in this new system?
I mean, look, the Bulls are going to try to play faster. They're going to Giddey is like he'll get the ball up in transition. And I think that does benefit Zach, where he's not just kind of playing off of DeMar. So I think there's a world where he's right. And Zach does look a little bit better in this style of offense. We saw it happen in the early part of the 2021-22 season when Zach was playing some of his best basketball and making an all-star team. So it's not crazy to think that, increased pace and health and all that stuff can benefit him. It's just a matter of like, at a certain point, what Dave is saying, like you just do have to move on. And I wonder, like, can you put a price on the idea of like closure with Zach and like moving forward and developing the younger players? I wonder what the like actual draft pick cost of that would be for them.
Any super chats we haven't gotten to yet, Steven, before we get out of here? Cap of the Great saying what Jerry is excited for is cash. Well, of course he is. Crying tears of joy. Everyone's talking tanking for Cooper Flag. I'm more excited for Kaman Maluach. Oh, yeah, that the Senegal guy who started playing with BAL. I think he actually just committed to Duke earlier this spring. I think he's 7'2". Yeah, I mean, as we're talking about whether or not we can up Vooch's trade value, that looks like a very interesting young prospect over there.
Cooper Flag,
I love how
Bailey, Jaleel Bethea, VJ Edgecombe, Maluach, Liam McNeely, Dylan Harper, Ron Harper's kid, Hugo Gonzalez. This draft class, Traore, this draft class is really loaded. And I think even if you don't get that number one pick, you're adding a very good young contributor. And that just makes everything a lot easier in terms of roster building. So at the end of the day, like we've said this before, and we'll spend the next couple of weeks talking about it too. Like, this is not like the exact every move that I would have made if I were in control of this rebuild and the way things are going. But the general direction I think is the right one. And if they can keep their pick, I think they're going to be pretty happy with where they set themselves up.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Cap of the Great for that super chat, who managed to put a deep pull Senegalese BAL prospect in the same comment as making fun of Jerry's obsession with money. That is solid work right there. That is a basketball fan. That's done.
From heart.
Football CF Candy, one of our regulars, what's up? Saying how many teams are worse than the Bulls right now? When we the Bulls are tanking. There are a handful. There are a handful. Detroit, Brooklyn.
Washington.
Maybe Washington for sure. Atlanta still somehow? I don't know. they didn't move on from the DeJounte Murray era. I mean, look, I think that the Bulls are not going to easily have a top 3 spot in the draft lottery next spring.
Right. Brooklyn.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Man.
Okay, final thoughts before we wrap up and send y'all on your merry way. It is late on a holiday weekend evening, and we'll be back on Monday. If anything happens between now and then, fear not. In the meantime, shout out to our guy Steven for reminding you guys from the CHGO Sports in the comments that you are awesome for being here on a holiday weekend Saturday night. Make sure to like and subscribe CHGO Sports YouTube channel and like this video if you haven't already. We appreciate it. It helps us grow the channel, helps us get it out there. We are here talking Bulls every day, 5 days a week with our fellow diehard Bulls fans. I will just say this and then pass it off to you guys for your final thoughts because I didn't give my DeMar love at the top.
Sure.
For everything that was frustrating about the last 3 years of mediocrity, I never once got sick of watching DeMar DeRozan absolutely meticulously dismantle people on a basketball court. The man is poetry in motion. His footwork, the pump fakes, the just deadly mid-range game that a lot of people are talking about being phased out of today's NBA. It's still, DeMar ISO was still one of the most efficient plays run across the entire NBA this past season. Mid-range, who cares? The efficiency of that man is lethal. Everything he did off the court for the young guys on this team, showing up as a mentor and a friend. You can't not love and appreciate it. Also, shout out to the fact that in year 15, age 34, DeMar DeRozan led the NBA in minutes played last season. And he played 93% of the possible games total in his 3-year span with the Chicago Bulls. That dude is an Iron Man. He's lovable. He's great with the media. I know you've spoken on that, Will, several times. What's not to love about DeMar DeRozan? It's sad that his tenure here did not lead to more competitive playoff moments, but he still gave us some pretty epic freaking moments that I know Bulls fans, the true Bulls fans out there who watch every night, win or lose, good team, middling team, bad team. He gave all of us some great freaking memories. And I will forever appreciate and love him for that.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. To add to that, shout out to my man Morris who put this up. Follow him on Twitter at MoBanks10. But he put this up. This is DeMar DeRozan stats for all time. We're talking all time as a Chicago Bull. All right. Number 2 franchise leader in regular season points per game, behind obviously Michael the GOAT Jordan. Number 7 franchise leader in regular season assists per game. He's number 2 franchise leader in regular season free throw attempts and free throws made. And he is franchise top 10 in both field goal attempts and field goals made per game in 3 seasons. That is unreal and ridiculous. And none of us were mad watching him do these things. It wasn't selfish. It wasn't like I'm sick of it. We created a t-shirt around it because it was the fourth quarter and we were like, oh, king in the fourth time. Here it comes. DeMar DeRozan to the rescue. I don't care what play you were drawing up in the fourth quarter. You scrapped it, threw it away, and said, give him the ball. And that's the offense. And that's what we're going to do. You saw the offense in the fourth. He would bring the ball up and set the offense up. This is what he does, man. It is DeMar DeRozan, a pro's pro. That is exactly what we had here. He will definitely be missed. Matt, everything you said, I completely agree with. I love DeMar DeRozan. I loved watching him on the podcast representing the Chicago Bulls when he was speaking and talking about anything, whether it was on the court or off the court, in the game or dealing with mental health, about his love for his family, about his love for Greg Popovich. All those things he was doing as a member of the Chicago Bulls. And I will always have love and respect for him, man. Thank you, DeMar DeRozan, for it all. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, he was really like one of the best 3-year periods of like any player in Bulls history. He was spectacular. I know kind of what you were saying, Matt, like his style of play is not the flavor of the week in the NBA. It is not something that really works for everybody that people are excited about. People are more concerned about fit. Is he going to fit with LeBron and AD? Is he going to fit with, Kawhi and Paul George? How does he work with Miami and Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo? Is he too mid-range? All this stuff. Like, he's just so great that he will figure it out wherever he goes. And I'm really, in particular, happy that he goes to a place now that, and I've said this a couple of times, but like, that is their biggest free agent in Sacramento Kings franchise history. And
right.
like, I think he's the kind of guy that you have to be around in order to understand and appreciate all the things that he does, because he's not just like, Paul George in terms of being like the perfect third star on a team that can slide in between and then beat in a maxi. Like, he's different than that. That doesn't make him like any better or worse, but it is. And I think you need to be around him in order to appreciate that. And clearly, I mean, as he walked out to Not Like Us at the Kings game tonight to a crowd of people cheering for him, like that's a franchise that I think will really appreciate him the way that he should be appreciated, that he deserves to be appreciated. I'm excited for him to go to a place like that really values him and that will appreciate the way that he does things and how that's just a little bit different from everybody else. DeMar was amazing with me personally. Like, he would always just chat. Like, you could just talk basketball with him. He would always make time for people, whoever it was. It wasn't just like, I'm only going to talk to, Casey Johnson or Sam Smith, like the legends of the group. Like, he would make time for anybody. He would always like go out of his way to give you a quote with an analogy that was hilarious. And you could tell the way that was true for the younger players on this team too. So, and I wrote this in my write-up of it, so you guys can go read more if you want to hear more. But like, if there is ever success with the young players on this team in the future for the Bulls, whether it's Kobe, Ayo, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Patrick Williams, any of those guys, if they are successful in the NBA, no doubt DeMar will have had an impact on that, because that is the kind of guy who he is, the kind of leader he was, the model of consistency and leadership and production for this team for 3 years. Obviously, as we've said, like the results were what the results were. They weren't great, but DeMar was spectacular individually as a leader and as a representative of the Chicago Bulls franchise. So I'm really happy for him that he gets to go to a place that will appreciate that in the way that I think we all do.
Thank you, Kendrick.
Well said. Well said, Goat. And last one, shout out to our friend Fried Rice in the comments. Just perhaps the greatest piece of DeMar's tenure. And there were some great moments, so many great moments. Of course, the back-to-back buzzer beaters on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But Fried Rice pointing out, let's not forget, when you talk about DeMar's greatness on the court and just how goddamn good he is when he is peak DeMar in his game, the streak he broke that was once held by Wilt Chamberlain. You know, the 7'1" center Wilt Chamberlain, who played decades and decades and decades ago, when things were all gravy on the Bulls fan train in that 21-22 season, and DeMar was in the middle of his second All-NBA second team season. 7 straight games of scoring 35 or more points on 50% shooting or better from the field. The last person to do that was a 7'1" center named Wilt Chamberlain. That, to me, will always define DeMar DeRozan, the basketball player. When he is on, that dude's unstoppable. And the fact that he did that and we all got to watch him do that in a Bulls jersey, regardless of whatever else, is something I will always cherish, because that's just watching someone at their best. And it's beauty. It's poetry. It's art. And I loved every second of it.
I'm loving every minute of
it. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this late night emergency podcast of CHGO Bulls on the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade to the Sacramento Kings, brought to you by our friends at Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Check them out. Take advantage of that job sponsor credit. Also, shout out to our other friends, Coors Light, Circa Sportsbook, Sunny Side, and of course, those glorious Shady Rays you saw Dave rocking earlier today. Hit the like on the way out. Make sure you also subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Have a great rest of your holiday weekend. We will be back Monday with a fresh episode for y'all, breaking down more of the fallout from the DeMar signing trade, anything else that happens between now and then, and looking ahead to Summer League, which is now less than a week away. See y'all in Vegas. Yeah, what's up, Dave?
Matt, real quick, I do want to send a shout out to everybody behind the scenes at CHGO, Steven, Greg Braggs, Emma, everybody, man. They all did incredible work during this time, guys. It was very chaotic, and they made it look real smooth behind the scenes, man. And we can't do this stuff without them.
Kevin, Emma, Jelly, everybody. I mean,
all of them. We can't do this without y'all, man. We cannot do this without them. Thank y'all for everything y'all did for this.
This is very true. It takes a village, as they say. And when these emergency, breaking news things happen and we jump on and do these emergency pods, there are a lot of things that go into it. Shout out also Caitlin, Jim, people on our sales crew, and make sure all the ducks were in a row on that. Shout out and thank you to everyone except Braggs, who I still plan to murder when I get back to Chicago. Love you, Braggs. Love you, buddy. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will talk to you on Monday for Will the Go Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb, Big Day, Bow, BAWL Sports, Steven, and our entire production and social team working hard behind the scenes all weekend on a holiday. Shout out to them. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck. We are CHGO Bulls. We love you, Bulls Nation. Whatever happens next, we will be here looking at it, watching it, talking about it together. We'll talk to you Monday. See you, Red. Be good.
We all silly like the mayor.